Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to build your own ad blocker in under 40 lines of code, and we'll be using the new manifest v3 format for Chrome extensions. So this is pretty much all the code that there is, and here's what it looks like before you block the ads, and here's what it looks like after you block the ads. So it's actually quite simple. Let's go into a browser that still has all the advertising still there, and then go into Chrome://extensions. You can load an unpacked extension using a folder containing those two files that I showed you. So if you open the folder, you'll see that simple ad blocker is there. And now, if you refresh the page, you'll see that the advertising is gone. And if you click on this tab here, you'll see that simple ad blocker is there. And within that extension, if you click on details, you'll see that it's really quite small, less than a megabyte, because it's less than 40 lines of code total, and has the permissions to block content on any page. So it's really quite simple in how it works. So if you want more details, it's using the chrome.declarativeNetRequest feature. If you go to developer.chrome.com/docs/extensions, there's going to be a reference guide, and this basically lets you block any type of URL instantly. So here you can see all the functionality and how it works and examples. And if you want to block more than URLs, for instance, maybe you want to block a certain type of CSS selector on a website, there is also the declarative content. So Chrome.declarativeContent basically lets you block any type of selector on a page. So if it's not specific to a website, you can block right on the selector itself. So for instance here, CSS, input, type equals password, and all that. So another example here. So basically declarativeNetRequest lets you block URLs, and with declarative content, you can be more specific and also block specific types of selectors and elements on a web page. And this is really all the code that there is. You're going to have two files. You're going to have a manifest.json file where you set the manifest version, and you'll give it a name such as simple ad blocker, give it a version, and then you'll set permissions, declarativeNetRequest, and inside the declarativeNetRequest, you'll set rule resources, then you'll set the ID, set enable to true, and then a path. So let's say use rules.json here, then the file is going to be called rules.json. And again, you'll set the ID, priority, action with type, block, and then inside the condition field, you'll set a URL filter, and it's going to block doubleclick.net, which is a common URL for advertising. And we're also going to duplicate that, but change the URL so that it also blocks googleadservices.com, which is another type of URL used for sending people advertisements on a web page. So if those two things blocked, you can block a large number of ads on the internet, and it's quite easy. If you just take these two files, you can modify it, copy it, basically add your own URLs that you want to block. And as I mentioned earlier, if you go to Chrome.declarativeContent and follow the examples you have there, you can also block certain types of selectors. So with that blocked, pretty much you've got no advertising on the page. So if you go back in here and you go into the extension, so then you could just click to disable it. And if you refresh the page, so for instance here, I'm going to refresh it, and then with the extension disabled, you'll see that advertising starts appearing back on the page. Here we go. So you can see here, advertising is there, but we click to enable that simple ad blocker, and then we refresh the page. The advertising is gone, and this is all using the simple manifest v3 format. So here you have all extensions, and if you have other types of extensions, you can add them here. For instance, you might have one extension that just blocks types of URLs, and you could have another extension that blocks specific elements on a page, and you would just do load unpacked to load the extension. If you go into the folder, you'll see here, let me expand on that. You're going to have two files, the manifest.json and the rules.json, and that's pretty much it. So if you're wondering where to basically get a boilerplate adblock.zip, which is what we used for those two files, you can find that from the Selenium base page on GitHub. So let's go to the Selenium base page, and then if you scroll down, you can click on Selenium base, and then if you scroll down here, you should be able to find extensions. So click on that, and then you'll find adblock.zip. If you basically fork the repo or clone the repo and then go into this folder and then unzip adblock.zip into its own directory, then you can load that directory with these two files. And I don't think you need this metadata here. I think that's auto-generated from somewhere, but essentially those are the only two files you need. So that's the adblock folder, and then we've loaded it inside Chrome using the load unpacked button, and make sure that you have developer mode enabled for this to work. So with that set, you pretty much have a working ad blocker, and that really is all there is to it. And this is all you need for the files. So essentially a manifest.json file and a rules.json file, less than 40 lines of code for this basic boilerplate, but you can easily modify it to do way more. All right, well, that concludes this tutorial. Hope you have a great time automating. I'll see you all later.